1,000. Elevation, about 1.5 feet. Ordinarily, on a beautiful, perfect March afternoon, you'd expect to see the people of Grapefruit Springs busy at work, going to school, maybe taking the afternoon off to attend that last spring training baseball game of the season. But not today. No, today, the hottest ticket in town is right here at City Hall, because the antediluvian order of buffaloes is coming in to amend their planned unit development to increase their footprint on the community and on their property. You'll hear more about that in just a minute. The buffaloes have been a presence in our community for many years. Most of our mayors have been buffs. Our sheriff, our superintendent of schools, many of our prominent merchants, all members of the order. And they like to have what they call high living, entertaining, raising money for charities, sponsoring the annual 4th of July fireworks show, and that annual event every spring, the Buccaneer Bash and Parade. Everybody loves it. Well, not quite. There are a few people on Springs Parkway who really are tired of the buffaloes because their facility has bright lights. It can be quite noisy. Their events sometimes go on till late in the evening. And principal among the people who find the buffaloes and their conduct objectionable is Dolores Fortescue, the chairperson for life of the Springs Parkway Civic Association. She's particularly annoyed with the Grand Supremo buffalo, Quincy Tuckahoe, who's well liked in the community and is our local Ford dealer. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Planning and Zoning Commission here in Grapefruit Springs. Bill Spakowski has been the chair of this body for the last 20 years. He was appointed to the Planning and Zoning Commission 21 years ago, and for the last 20 years, every year, his colleagues have reinstated him. That's because he's one of the 2 people on the Planning and Zoning Commission who've actually read all of the comprehensive plan and the land development regulations. And he has a reputation for fairness, which I'm sure you will see. The vice chair is Daryl Flimsy. Daryl is a retired high school teacher from Illinois who moved down to the Sunshine State to sell real estate and be a member of a lot of organizations. 3 years ago, in fact, he was the Grand Supremo buffalo. Priscilla Goodhart is the other person who has read the land development regulations and the comprehensive plan, and she can quote them chapter and verse. She comes from a prominent old family here in Tangerine County, and she is generally respected by her colleagues. And today, for this performance only, Kay DeSellam will be playing this part. Our next 2 members I have to talk about together because they really despise each other. Chester Manley is a pro-Second Amendment, property rights, pro-organized religion, although he never actually goes to church himself, and he annoys the hell out of Kate Evergreen, who is a local business owner, ran for city council and almost got elected 3 years ago, and she's thinking right now that this would be a good time for her to run for mayor. I'd like to point out, this is one great thing about this community of ours. Grapefruit Springs is such a great place that it seems like everybody wants to be mayor. One other thing about Chester. At least once every hearing, Chester gets the urge for a cigarette and has to go out into the parking lot, and every time he does, Kate wants to scream. I hope she doesn't. Well, maybe she will. The last member is Matt Makepeace. Now, Matt is the alternate member. He can only vote if there's an absence, excused or otherwise. He is free to speak at any time. He can make or second motions. He can debate, but he can't vote. Matt used to be the planning director right here in Grapefruit Springs. Then a number of years ago, he got into a tiff with the city manager, and they decided to go their separate ways. 6 months later, when the city manager was fired, Matt kind of wished he had his old job back, and in the last 2 years, he actually applied for the job of deputy city manager. He didn't get it because young Willie Vandertroit got that job just 2 years out of graduate school, and Matt's a little hurt by that. Matt is also always trying to unruffle the feathers between Chester and Kate, and in my opinion, that's a fool's errand. I don't think you should even bother. Now, there are 3 people in the audience who have whistles. One is a planner of many years' experience. One is an attorney who is also a practicing hearing examiner somewhere here in this part of Florida. And one is a planner who is an attorney who is a university professor. The whistle crew will have 2 functions. They can stop the action at any time to point out matters that they think may be interesting or that they would like to give you more information on. And afterwards, they'll have one last opportunity to point out, make comments on what you see. All right. Yes, sir.
How long did you practice this? You've been really good.
Oh. 2 days.
Site of you, right?
2 days, yeah. Thank you. So, well, this is my homage to Thornton Wilder, if you remember that from high school. Okay. What's just happened what has just happened is, number one, we've all said the Pledge of Allegiance. We've all had our 15 seconds of ecumenical silence. And what is about to happen is that our chairman is going to call the hearing to order. After that, Georgette Spelvin, our deputy town clerk, will administer the oath or affirmation to all of us. After that, the staff will give their presentation. The applicant, who I see is sitting with the board, I'm not sure that that's allowed, will make their presentation, and his attorney. The intervener, Dolores Fortescue, and her attorney will make their presentation. After that, they'll be receiving public comment. Then, after due deliberation and debate, they're going to make a decision, and once again, you'll hear from the whistleblower. Well, that's our town, and I hope you enjoy the play.
Planning and zoning commission meeting is called to order, March 23rd, 2018. We have one case before us today. Will the clerk call the roll, please? Ms. Feldman, are you available to call the roll? Yes.
Bill Stikowski,
Here.
Daryl Quincy,
Here.
Priscilla Goodhart, Chester Manley,
Here.
Kate Evergreen, here, Matt McKees, present.
Thank you, Ms. Feldman. Ms. Turco, will you please take your seat in the audience until your time?
Well, you all told me I could make myself at home. So I just took this very comfortable seat with all these nice people on the side of you.
Okay, we will begin by disclosure of expeditious communication, starting on the right side. If you had any discussions with the applicant off the record case, please disclose the nature if so.
No, I'm doing that.
Next.
No.
I myself have spent many evenings in the game room. We have not discussed this case.
I had Mr. Tuckahoe over for drinks last night.
And the nature of your discussions concerning this case?
We talked.
Can you elaborate on the nature of those discussions as it relates to this case?
We talked about buffaloes and how we want to make the community a better place for us.
Thank you. Next.
Which case are we talking about again?
Order buffaloes, if you have any parts of communication.
Yes, I mean, we're in town, we live together, same community, yeah, of course we talk, sure.
About this case?
Yeah, not really,
Not at all?
not really, yes.
Not at all?
Not really, yes, right, exactly.
Okay, we will move on. Those of you who are going to testify today are going to be asked to be sworn in, and we do not ask the attorneys to be sworn in because we don't expect you to tell the truth anyway. Please stand if you expect to testify today.
Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Absolutely.
Thank you. We will begin the hearing. We'll begin with Mr. Daltrey making a presentation of the staff's recommendations.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Wyatt Daltrey, planning director for the city of Grapefruit Springs. My credentials may be obtained at the city clerk's office. What we have before you today is PUD 18-0016, the antediluvian order of buffaloes. The applicant for this case is the antediluvian order of buffaloes. Location of the project is 1001 Springs Parkway. The property consists of 10 acres located on Springs Parkway. The existing zoning of the subject property is Civic Plan Development, CPD, and the request is to amend an existing planned unit development to allow new uses and changes to existing uses at a private club. This is an aerial of the subject property and the surrounding area. The antediluvian order of buffaloes subject property is located in the center of this aerial. As you can see, just to the south of the property is Springs Parkway, a 4-lane state highway. Just off map is Tangerine Square Mall, located approximately 1/2 mile away. The development pattern in this area is sporadic. You can see some sporadic single-family development as you go a 1/4 mile away from the subject property. Immediately in the vicinity of the property are undeveloped, large acreage properties. This is the zoning map. Thank you. This is a zoning map of the subject property indicated in light blue. The surrounding area in pink is the commercial zoning designation. There is some residential property located just north of the subject property in a sort of yellowish color, and the other yellow and off-white colors indicate our residential development district and our single-family ultra zoning district. The one property just across the street that does not have a color is located in Tangerine County. It's an enclave. It's not under city jurisdiction. This is a site plan of the subject property. And the less said about that, the better. Some background for the commission.
You aren't going to talk about the site plan at all?
I can't read it very well. Mr. Belcher?
Background for the subject property. The surrounding uses, as you saw on the aerial on the map series, vacant and developed commercial and residential properties. Roughly 50% of the residential properties within 1 mile of the subject property are developed. As I mentioned earlier, subject property is located.
Mr. Chair,
Yes. Would you like to speak?
Mr. Manley has missed some very important testimony from our staff.
We've been through this before. Ms. Manley, was that necessary? Essential?
Absolutely, absolutely. I already know everything about this, just don't worry about it. Keep going.
The attorney, does this cause a problem for his participation in this hearing?
Derek Rooney, City Attorney. Mr. Manley, have you reviewed the exhibits provided to you by city staff?
Of course, absolutely, yes.
And Mr. Daltrey, is the summary that's included in your report, your verbal report included in those materials?
Yes.
Okay, then I don't believe there'll be a problem. But before we proceed, just because I do notice there's a number of possible objectors here, and possibly a court reporter in the background. Despite your credentials being with the clerk's office, if you could very briefly, Mr. Daltrey, describe your background, education, credentials, and then I would ask that the commission accept him as an expert in planning, at least for the city of Grapefruit Springs.
I'm sorry, Derek. I don't believe that the city attorney can request that the commission, the council accept the expert recommendations. You can say review, but I think it's prejudicial to say to the lay board, accept the credentials.
And your basis for that is?
4 years of practicing law.
It's 1,200-person outdoor festival space.
Sorry, how many?
1,200. Discussions with our public safety personnel had led to concerns regarding the number of potential attendees, effects on noise coming from the property, traffic, parking, policing, subhead issues involved with that. As a result, we've recommended that the outdoor festival area be restricted to only have 800 persons. Regarding the go-kart track, noise concerns for this track have been addressed by the attached sound study that was in your packets and placed on our online services.
Sorry, I didn't see a noise study in the packet.
We had issued one with our city clerk's office.
There's no noise study with our package.
Is the one that was handed out today at the beginning of the meeting?
Kowski, I have that study.
Oh, I'm sorry, this is...
Mr. Chairman, I've never seen this before. Have we had some time to review it? What the hell is this?
I don't know.
You don't know.
No, I'm not sure.
It's got lots of charts and graphs.
Yeah, I don't recall.
No.
Yeah, I remember this from our packets, absolutely.
Ms. Dolce, could you enlighten us on this document and what it purports to say, and particularly who prepared it?
Well, we're consulting with Sound Study International to develop a sound study for this go-kart track. It's our intention to have that in your packets.
It was prepared at whose request?
At our city manager's request.
And it was paid for by the city, so this is the city study?
Yes, it was.
Mr. Chairman, I object to this. Just point of order. You know, back when I was running the department, I would have never allowed something like this to happen, ever to be introduced evidence at the last minute, 30-page reports, it's full charts and graphs done by God knows who, like, for God knows what reason. What are we doing here?
Mr. Rudy, could you advise us on how we should handle this?
Oh, I don't think there should be a problem. Mr. Dolce, clearly there's probably someone from Sound Study International here that can testify as to the issues that are contained in the report. Therefore, the commission doesn't have to read it at this moment.
Okay, we'll wait and see if there's that testimony.
Back in my day, we would have hired a real city attorney who would have reviewed stuff like this.
Mr. Dolce,
I don't, if I get the materials ahead of time, unfortunately, it may be prejudicial for me to review it and make any recommendations on it.
Very disturbing. Mr. Dolce, proceed.
Well, can I make a motion just to scrap this and throw it away? That,
No, you may not. So if there's testimony on it, that would, we'll take it up again before we make our recommendation.
Officer, could you remove that gentleman?
Will the city attorney please explain how getting information prior to the hearing is prejudicial?
That was a joke.
We can't always tell from this room.
Mr. Dolce, proceed.
To quickly summarize the study, Sound Study International determined that impacts to the residential community would be minimized by the placement of that go-kart track, and that the plan is to direct the noise projection towards Springs Parkway and away from the surrounding residential areas to the north. Our recommendation is, frankly, we agree with the study. We require that that go-kart track be oriented to project the sound southward towards Springs Parkway. In addition,
Mr. Chairman, how can you agree with the study? You just got it and you're not an expert on sound.
We're going to find out if there's testimony, and I will get to that in a minute, please.
in addition, we also suggest that usage of the go-kart track be limited to 8 p.m. on weekdays and 10 p.m. on weekends. The following, the following slides refer to the consistency of this request for a comprehensive plan. The first policy we looked at is policy 1.1 of our transportation element. Springs Parkway has an adopted level of service D. The proposed development would not reduce the level of service standard for that roadway below D. Springs Parkway is a state highway. In our conversations with the Florida Department of Transportation, no concerns have been identified by that department. And as such, we feel that this proposed amendment is supported by this policy. Policy 2.2, Parks and Recreation element. Grapefruit Springs has identified go-kart tracks and beer gardens as recreational facilities. Presently, city has a sufficient number of go-kart track facilities, but is underserved in the amount of beer gardens.
Amen.
As such, as a request would help reduce that deficiency in beer gardens, we find that this proposed amendment is supported by this policy. Policy 3.3, Conservation and Coastal Management element, calls for the reduction of impervious surfaces where appropriate. As you're aware, impervious surfaces contribute to the urban heat island effect. Furthermore, they reduce rainwater absorption, can lead to rainwater runoff, which results in lessened water quality. As such,
Excuse me, is this waterfront property?
no.
You said island, so I was kind of, where's it? By the main road, right?
The heat island effect that.
Mr. Manley will have a chance for questions. Go ahead, Mr. Dolce.
As a result, we feel that this planned unit development amendment is supported by this policy. To conclude, staff recommends approval of conditions as were identified in our recommendations. Basically, that the temporary parking spaces be developed with pervious sod surface only. The festival area be reduced to 800 persons maximum. The go-kart track be oriented to project sound toward the Springs Parkway. Hours of operation for the go-kart track to be restricted to 8 p.m. on weekdays and 10 p.m. on weekends. We find that this amendment is consistent with 3 policies of our comprehensive plan as identified in this presentation. We find that this is in accordance with Article 5, Plan Unit Developments for our Land Use Development Regulations. We've received 60 letters in support, and 60 letters in opposition to this request. I'll stand by for any questions.
Before we go to questions from Mr. Daltrey, who else on the staff will be testifying today?
We had a person from Sound Studies International who was going to testify or be available for questions regarding the study. Unfortunately, that person cannot make it to the meeting.
And that person's name is?
Bob Johnson, Sound Study Tech.
Well, I think we should address the sound study issue right now. We have no testimony, we have not received in advance, we have no knowledge of its credibility, and I'm very doubtful of it. The other members of the commission seem to-
Bob Johnson's a good guy. I would trust him, so.
We have other comments on the commission.
Have you met Bob Johnson?
Of course. Great fun. We go to the shooting range every Saturday.
Have you discussed this case with him?
No, of course not.
Of course not.
Do we have a motion on whether to accept this report as evidence for this case?
I make a motion to throw it out.
Do we have a second to that motion?
I can second.
Any discussion on the motion to discard this for this hearing?
I can second.
He can make the motion, he cannot vote. All right, any further discussion? The clerk call the roll, call the motion.
Bill Sikowski,
I vote yes.
Darrell Flimsy,
Heck no.
Priscilla Goodhart,
Yes or no?
no. Chester Manley,
Yes.
Kate Evergreen,
Yes. I mean, no.
Motion fails, which means the report is not rejected. You can get it the way you like. Are there any questions from the commission of Mr. Daltrey or Mr. Vanderchart? If not, we will now.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes.
And back in the day, my staff would have done a much more thorough analysis of this. Did you consider policy 90210, which is the serene and tranquil future land use category, which this property is in? How is this consistent with the serene and tranquil future land use category, which is a land use category that I wrote back in the day, and it's intended to address situations like this?
Mr. Daltrey.
Regrettably, in discussions with our city attorney's office, it was found that land use classification 90210, the serene lands, was found to be unconstitutional, and as a result, we're working on removing that from our comprehensive plan.
Mr. Daltrey, it's still in the comprehensive plan?
It is still in the comprehensive plan, but we are looking to remove it,
Yeah.
and we felt that it is inappropriate given its location on Springs Parkway, which is identified again as a 4-lane roadway, 40,000 utilized daily trips.
Mr. Chairman,
I'd like to hear from the city attorney on may be inappropriate, but what about?
Yes, we've had, the problem is that policy 90210 has been repeatedly challenged in court as a unpromulgated rule because it gives certain delegations of authority to city staff, and as a result of the Melrose Place case that we can no longer enforce it until we have such time to go through the process. I believe it's going to be part of the ERP amendments to remove it. Thank you.
That'll be coming before you next month.
Thank you. Any other questions on other subjects?
Mr. Chairman, if we're going to ignore the comprehensive plan, at least go into the land development code and see if this is consistent with the land development code. If you look at land
This is not our
development,
discussion of the case. We're getting questions from.
this is relevant to the case. Land development code section 867-309. Uses like boozing, gambling, and square dancing within 500 feet of residential or agricultural uses is prohibited, especially near citrus farms. Did you even consider this part of the land development code? Again, that's 867-309. Yeah, I wrote that section. It was to protect,
That too has been challenged in the courts. I'll defer to the city attorneys for more specificity, but I believe boozing is not a term that we have defined in our land development regulations, much less square dancing. I believe that was central to the challenge that we've had so far.
Thank you, Mr. Makepeace. We're done with that. Do we have any other questions of Mr. Daltrey before we move to the applicant's presentation?
I have a question, sir. Can a gun range be added to this project? We got enough room, you're gonna cut down 400 people from how many can attend? I think you're gonna be pretty nice there.
Well, through our analysis of the, no.
Any questions on other stuff?
I have a question. Are you a member of the Buffaloes? Because if you're not, then I'm not sure I can, fully get behind what you're doing up there.
Mr. Daltrey, are you a member of the Buffaloes?
I'm not a member of the Buffaloes.
Okay, we will now move to the applicant's presentation. Mr. Dewey, would you like to begin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Hubert Lewis, Floyd Dewey, with 8th of the firm of Dewey, Cheatham and Howe, attorney for the benevolent, fraternal, protective, semi-serene, and tranquil antediluvian order of the Buffaloes. I would like to introduce my client, Quincy Tuckahoe, who is the Grand Supreme Buffalo, who will be providing testimony on this case, and I would like to reserve 20 minutes for legal discussion and rebuttal at the end.
We'll see about that. Ms. Tuckahoe, we're welcome to be back, and would you like to I hope you feel at home.
Mr. Chairman, members of the august Planning and Zoning Commission of Grapefruit Springs, I am pleased to be here before you this very day. I'm going to remove my working hat and go to my buffalo hat to make sure everybody knows on who I am representing here, my beloved antediluvian buffaloes, who do so much for this community that the list which you started with is so incomplete. We use our buffalo training grounds
Mr. Tuckahoe, will you
for...
speak about the case, please?
I am. I'm demonstrating to you the importance of the changes of the uses and how we'll improve this community. Now, if you want to give my presentation, Mr. Chairman, you can go ahead and do it. I believe I have the right to speak
Please limit yourself
during
to
my
the case at
period of
hand.
time. And if you're going to intrude in that time in order to prevent me from saying words that must be said, this is not America.
Your time is running, Mr. Tuckahoe. Please proceed.
All right. So, our buffalo training ground is used by the Grapefruit League militia for their training. And you know that they're here to protect our Second Amendment rights, so you can meet peacefully when you're doing our work, or perhaps suppress you for being the obtrusive government that you are sometimes accused of being. Also, we bring fame to Grapefruit Springs with our annual photography contest that's sponsored by a national magazine known as Photos in the Buff. And we have reviewed your staff report to help make this vote and say we can agree with the staff report, but we have two little issues that need to be discussed. First is the 800 people. You know that when people drive in, we count the people who are in the car, but we've never been able to count the ones in the trunk. So, if we exceed the 800, it is because these are unregistered participants. And I am assured that they generally leave that way too, so we would never be able to catch them on the way out. And the other part is the concern about the impervious nature of the parking lot. Well, we're just trying to do that to make sure that people don't get their feet wet going to the hall. But if you're going to hold by that condition, I do know that we have been petitioned for a volunteer organization to be able to use that property, if it goes grassy, for the Golf Widows trap shoot. And they will have their own gate, and they will make sure all proceeds go to the Golf Widows Mimosa Buffet after the shoot on Sunday morning, when their husbands, who should be at church with them, are out on the golf course, and they instead are going to decide to get their revenge by shooting little clays made in the silhouette of their husband's head. And they will not use pellets. They will not use pellets. They will be using grass seed in the shotgun cartridges, so that the pervious area will be wildflowers from January 1st to December 31st.
Mr. Tuckahoe, are you asking to amend this PUD to include gun range?
No, sir, that is, we do not control what volunteers do. And this, what we control is our permitted uses.
Proceed.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I just laid it out for you. We can go along with this if you can assure us that our 800 member participant at the events is only on the counted persons that we can see inside the car. And as far as the impervious, I mean, we use engineers, you use engineers, all the members work. It's just kind of like we're going to create a heat island when a lot of the property around us isn't developed yet, and I suspect that they're probably going to create more impervious surface anyway. So you're really going to notice?
Thank you, Mr. Tuckahoe. We can offer you no such assurance on the administration and enforcement of this code. That's not our job. Do you have anything further?
Well, sir, in that case, since I know that so many of the members of the community participate in all our events, I'm not going to be too worried about the 800 count. As far as the impervious, what will happen will be what will happen. So I will say, yo ho, Buffalo!
I leave my hat. I'm going to go back to being citizen again.
Mr. Dewey, do you have further comments on this application?
Again, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, thank you. Doug Floyd Dewey for the record. I would just like to reiterate what my client has said and to say that we accept the conditions and the recommendation of the staff report, given the cachet on the 800 population limitation and also with regard to the impervious parking. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Before you leave, do we have any questions from the Planning and Zoning Commission of Mr. Dewey, Mr. Tuckahoe?
Make a motion to approve.
We're not near that point.
I have some questions.
I don't recognize that motion.
Yeah,
Yes, go ahead.
I have some questions. I've been doing some research on this independently.
I don't believe you disclosed that when I asked you about,
Oh, it's just on the computer, and it was easy to do, but I found a deed from 1864 from the city of Grapefruit Springs.
did you prepare that?
To Buffalo LLC. No, just like something I found online. And it says in this deed restriction that the property must be utilized only for the following three things. Number one, coconut washing. Number two, chicken plucking. And number three, it says no Presbyterians or Masons. I'd like to show this to the city attorney.
Mr.
I
Chairman.
asked him why he didn't find such a thing, because
Because it wouldn't have happened when you were planning, right? Yes, I did.
Well, you know, as I heard another fellow city attorney mentioned very recently and very locally, the city staff does not make any representations as the application and contents. That is all sworn testimony and by the applicant. So if this is something that was made unaware to us, we have some time to address this before it goes to the city council. But otherwise, it's a matter for the courts.
So you suggest we proceed disregarding it today, but you will...
Well, this, along with all the other items that have been presented to the commission, will all be part of the record. However, you know, the weight of which will be...
This will not be part of the record according to our vote.
Mr. Chairman, I'm allowed to make a motion, right?
Not this time.
Well, I don't think it's appropriate for any motion to be made until we've heard from the public. This is a public hearing.
I think this is serious business.
They didn't do it that way when you were director, but that's how we're doing it now.
We should continue this case until next month, so we can do some research on this matter.
He's not even a real member. Can we just move on?
I haven't heard a motion, so we will move on. Any other questions for Mr. Dewey or Mr. Tuckahoe? Okay.
Mr. Chair, I would still like to reserve my 20 minutes for rebuttal and legal argument at the end.
We look forward to that. Thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to testimony from the public and any interveners. Yes, please come to the podium, state your name and address and who you represent.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Ralph Brooks, attorney with the Hopping Mad Law Firm. I was referred this case by go ask Ralph. I have uncovered some evidence today that I must bring to your attention. First, an motion to disqualify for prejudice and bias. It's a good thing that there is an alternative member with a brain on his head, Matt Makepeace, who could fill in. Because Daryl Flimsy, according to this flyer that was sent out by the Buffaloes to come today to support this application, states, please come to the meeting. We are expecting support from our great philanthropist, Vice Chair Daryl Flimsy, who is our illustrious former Grand Supremo Buffalo. This was not disclosed. Even if it is disclosed, it creates prejudice and bias under the case Board of Broward County versus State X-Rail Allen, 219 Southern 2nd, 430, Florida, Supreme Court, 1969. Prejudice and bias should be heard by this board and decided by a vote first before he is allowed to continue unless he recuses himself. Normally he would have to vote if he doesn't have special pecuniary gain, but if there is prejudice and bias, he should be removed and disqualified from this particular decision.
I am not going to refuse myself, so you can go sit down if you need to.
Mr. City Attorney, what's our obligation to respond to this motion?
Well, under section 286-2012, there is actually a voting requirement, or I like to call it the no cop-out rule for members of deliberative bodies, unless there is an actual, under the Code of Ethics, conflict or perceived bias, which would be that of the actual member who is looking to recuse himself. They must vote on the action.
Mr. Brooks, would you like to proceed with the rest of your discussion?
Well, I would like you to take a vote now so that the replacement can come up and take the place of Daryl Flimsy, who I think should be recused as a former Grand Supremo Buffalo chair.
We've heard your point. Please move on.
We would also like to move to disqualify Chester Manley. While Chester Manley was out in his car smoking, we found this in the back of his truck, just beyond the gun rack. Isn't it true, Chester Manley, that you have indeed become a member of the Grand Supreme Buffaloes?
Please direct your questions to the chair if you have any.
Chairman, I would ask whether Chester Manley has something to disclose.
Mr. Manley's already disclosed his participation. That's already on record. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to ignore the bias.
Please, we're not. Mr. Brooks.
You may have your hat back, but I'll have to place it in the record.
Accepted in the record. Mr. Brooks, please proceed. Mr. Chairman.
We have one more motion to disqualify. Your planning director is AICP, and he is sworn by a code of ethics. He is standing by the door below the exit sign. Next to Quincy Tuckahoe, the current Grand Supremo of Buffalo. We have, based on records with the Census Bureau and the property appraiser of Tangerine County, that Wyatt Daltrey has been living in a home where Quincy Tuckahoe is cohabitating with Wyatt Daltrey's mother. And I have but one question on cross-examination for Wyatt Daltrey. Wyatt, who's your daddy?
Mr. Brooks, do you have any testimony on this case, or are you ready to?
Yes. This is an egregious case where this facility is seeking to double the size of their boozing and gambling operations. They've already caused problems in their private lounge because they're operating a private bottle lounge after hours. They're drunks passing out in the driveway and relieving themselves in the impervious area of the ditch, as well as the impervious area.
Oh, well known. Please proceed.
While standing in the beer garden of the Buffalo Lodge, yet another member of this board was there. Bill Spikowski, that's right, your chair.
That's the factoid, sir.
As I saw this occur, or Bill Spikowski passed out in the beer garden. His drinking partner turned to the bartender. The bartender said, "Hey, you can't leave that lion there." And his drinking partner said, "That's no lion, that's a buffalo." So yes, it's true. We believe that Bill Spakowski is indeed a buffalo as well.
Motion to ignore the bias?
Mr. Brooks, do you have any testimony as to this case other than lies and slander?
Yes, we have a violation of 8675309. Because many weddings are occurring at this Buffalo Lodge. And as you know, square dancing and boisterous behavior and music like that that would be attended with drinking at a wedding are not allowed. We would suggest respectfully that if any Buffalo are to get married, they do not do it at this facility, and in fact, Buffalo instead.
Mr. Brooks?
Outdoor amplified music at the amphitheater will be too loud. We object to the inclusion of this sound report because Mr. Bob Johnson is not here for cross-examination. We also object to the inadequate disclosures under Jennings that were made because the substance of what was discussed was not talked about or disclosed here. And we object because Chester Manley keeps going out to take cigarette breaks and has missed more than half of this hearing, and it's a quasi-judicial hearing, and our court reporter sitting in the back has noted the exact times that he is leaving and coming to the meetings, and there's no way that he can watch the tape before he votes, if you are going to vote today.
Mr. Manley?
Out of order.
Mr. Manley, were you sworn in to give testimony, or are you an attorney for the objectors?
I will now call my expert witness, Dolores Fortescue.
Thank you. Ms. Fortescue, please state your name and affiliation and address for the record.
My name is Dolores Fortescue, and I live at 113 Spring Street. And I am the president forever and ever of the Springs Parkway Civic Association. And I'm not happy to be here today to talk once more about the Royal Order of the Buffoons. Oh, I'm sorry, Buffaloes. I have been up here many times. In fact, I have, which I would like to leave with you all, a list, single space, type 8, of all the concerns and all the issues that I have raised with this project in the past, and I will hand it to your attorney, and I hope that you all read every single word.
Was this submitted in advance to be available in our packets?
It was submitted with the sound study. PM curfew. They are constantly out there hollering and going, "Yoo-hoo, Buffalo! Yoo-hoo, Buffalo!"
Yo-ho, Buffalo.
Well, I say yoo-hoo, you say yo-ho, who cares? There is buffalo calling at all hours of the day and night in the parking lot. They're out there doing their little buffalo dancing. I don't know what that is, but they're out there. There's a lot.
Coconut washing, ma'am.
Well, that's not what it looks like. They're particularly loud when the girls' track team runs by during practice, which I find to be particularly offensive.
Hashtag me too.
I would point out that I disagree with the interpretation that the go-kart and the beer garden are recreational facilities. According to policy 3.4.1, they're clearly commercial uses. There's public people coming in, they're selling stuff, they're making money, and it is not a recreational use, so I think it's inconsistent with the comp plan.
Mr. McPeak, did you write that regulation?
Yes, I did write that
Do you agree with that interpretation of it?
Huh?
Do you agree with that
She's
interpretation?
absolutely right on that. That's why I wrote that.
Okay, we'll get back to Mr.
Well,
Dollar.
I actually have an issue. I could not, I'm checking here right now in the code book, and I can't find a regulation 3.4.1 because all of our regulations, if they're in the comp plan, are at least 5 digits, has been clearly identified, or 7 digits if they're in the land development code. Somehow I think that this code may be pulled up from a different community.
Mr. Dollar, be prepared to respond to that.
I actually use the shorthand version, so it's 503.10.
Thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome. I think that the addition of the increased parking and the sound stage with the existing uses violates, and I won't use the shorthand version this time, 5012.1, just for your edification, that it exceeds the requirement that impervious surfaces be reduced or limited to 30% of the site. And I disagree that the pervious surface and the impervious surface has been met. And with respect to the sound, I didn't see the sound study. We were not allowed to be given the sound study, but as the esteemed commissioner down at the end said, my neighborhood is a serene and pristine neighborhood. We are in that category, and that category is still in the comprehensive plan. You cannot ignore it if it's in the plan at this point. And we spend a lot of time in our neighborhood being friendly, sitting on our front porches, watching our neighbors walk their dogs and their elderly parents at night. And we think that summer nights should be filled with the sound of crickets and owls and other sort of natural sounds, as opposed to the vroom, 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 vroom version of the Buffalo's Daytona Speedway that they want to build next door to our neighborhood. So I think that the sound study needs to be, the sound issue needs to be addressed before any decision is made on this. And with that, I will be happy to answer any questions, and I do hope that you will read the extensive material that I've given you.
I don't have a chance to, since you just delivered it to us,
But I gave it with the sound study. I
Before
will
you
just say
step
that
down, are
again.
there any questions from commissioners for Ms. Fortescue?
Yes. Ms. Forrest, how old are you?
I don't think that's any of your business, son.
When's the last
But
time
I do know your mother.
When's the last time you had fun?
All right. These questions, does anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, can you provide all of your background in education and those fancy colleges that you went to? Or
Harvard?
Do you have any, Harvard?
Cambridge Analytical?
Ms. Fortescue is a member of the public. She's not asked to be qualified as an expert, so we won't need to respond to that. Any other questions? Okay, Mr. Brooks, do you have any other legal arguments or closing comments?
I think you've heard the evidence, competent, substantial evidence delivered as expert opinion from our expert planner. I can summarize by saying that this Buffalo project will just not give milk. It's a milk dud. This buffalo should be returned to the field. There should be no expansion of this facility. Thank you very much.
Mr. Brooks, what competent, substantial evidence did you just refer to?
Our esteemed expert witness, Dolores Fortescue.
Ms. Fortescue, I didn't understand that you had asked to be qualified as an expert. We appreciate your testimony and your direct observations.
Dolores, could you please come back up and give us your resume? We forgot to explain your expert planning resume. Thank you.
We're just going to you have to say regardless, but it does matter for the process.
I was born in a small town in 1956.
Not the deposition version, just the testimony you're hearing.
Oh, okay. I have a degree in planning from the esteemed Florida State University, the only university that's worth thinking about in Florida.
Motion to disqualify.
I have 38 years of experience at the state, local, nonprofit, and regional level. And I have been the author of several guides dealing with springs protection and historic preservation and disaster planning that have been accepted and given awards by the National American Planning Association.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion to accept Ms. Fortescue as an expert witness in this case?
Denied.
No, we have a motion to approve it.
Motion.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Second. Any discussion on the motion? We'll have a roll call vote on the motion to accept Ms. Fortescue as an expert for this case.
Mr. Scott?
Yes. Aye.
Daryl Lindsay?
No way in hell.
I do know your mother, son.
Priscilla Goodhart?
Yes, definitely.
Chester Manley?
Absolutely not.
Kate Evergreen?
Yes.
Motion carries 3-2. You are accepted, and thank you very much for your testimony. Any other public testimony? Is there any rebuttal from either party? Or do we, if we have to, do we have to listen to, would you like to make some comments, legal comments?
Chair, can we just make a motion, get on with this? We all got things to do.
Get late, it's 5 o'clock on the record.
I'm sorry.
I've got an appointment to make.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, again for the record of, who am I? Floyd Dewey. I'd like to clarify that, the property has been previously approved for on-premises consumption of alcoholic beverages. We do not condone any boozing or square dancing. We believe that the qualifications in Ordinance 8675309 do not apply. With regard to any loudness, the city has a noise ordinance, and we'll comply with that ordinance, and that should be well enough. We would like to make a motion to disqualify Ralph Brooks as this grandson of the comedian Foster Brooks, and at the very least, his testimony as attorney in fact, and not as subject matter witness. I'm disappointed that staff did not place into the record the 500 likes that we got for this case on Facebook, and the countless tweets, especially one from Donald J. Trump, to wit, very good job. We want to make a point that the area surrounding our property is all undeveloped land, and that the benevolent, fraternal, and protective, serene and tranquil antediluvian order of the Buffaloes recommend you accept the staff report with the conditions, except for the limitation on 800, which we don't feel is enforceable, and for the pervious pavement. If you got to have grass, then we want to have the wildflowers and the shooting. Thank you.
Mr. Brooks, you have any rebuttal?
Not at this time.
Okay, Mr. Daltrey, we have a question. There was a question for you about that provision of the code. Do you have an opinion on that?
Don't forget who his daddy is.
We agree with whatever was said.
We will move on. All right, the public comment and that portion of the hearing has ended. We will now proceed to discuss this among ourselves, hopefully leading to a motion of recommendation to the City Commission.
Motion approved.
We're going to have discussion before we have a motion.
I'd like to reiterate my objection to Mr. Manley. He's been up and out of the room more than he's been sitting at this table.
You should be paying attention to the presentation and not me, ma'am.
Were you out there discussing the particulars of the case with the poor folks sitting in the outside?
I don't think that's any of your business.
Really, he wasn't gone more than usual. A discussion on the case, on the merits of the case, and on the, we have a staff recommendation with conditions, and we have the applicant agreeing to all except those two conditions.
Just don't know about that serene and tranquil. I don't think this is going to cut that. I don't think it is, for me.
Mr. Chair, I personally have done chicken plucking and coconut washing on that site, so I think that it meets all the regulations that it was supposed to, whether this deed is accurate or not. The interveners mentioned they had 300 people sitting outside, what a travesty that was, and I would say the same goes for this. If we cut 400 out of this, from 1,200 to 800, it's a travesty that the Buffaloes can't be there, and we should allow them to have the 1,200 and at a gun range.
Well, I'm not a Presbyterian or a Mason, so I think it's good that it meets the deed. I just recommend for approval.
Any other comments? I know you're just an alternate, but you are allowed to make motions and participate in the
Mr.
discussion.
Chairman, if this is approved, I can't believe it, but so we're going to be ignoring the land development code, we're going to be ignoring the comprehensive plan, and we're going to be ignoring a deed restriction. This case shouldn't have been found sufficient in the first place.
It wouldn't have if, okay, yes.
And I'd like to advocate evergreen to that ignore list, please. Thank you.
Excuse me, it's my turn.
Talk some more. Go ahead.
I agree with Mr. Makepeace. I also thought Ms. Forrest, you made very good points, and it has nothing to do with the fact that I'm part of her little group there. I suggest that we deny this case.
Any further discussion before we accept a motion? Okay, is there a motion from the floor on whether to, what to recommend to the City Council?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion on the motion, anything beyond what we've already discussed?
I can't wait to go there.
We have a motion and a second to accept the staff recommendation with no changes in the conditions
Oh,
proposed.
no, we want to add the gun range.
Well, you didn't say that.
I withdraw my motion.
You have a motion, is there a second you're accepting that?
I make a motion to approve.
Well, we're dealing with the first motion first. Are you withdrawing?
Take control of this meeting, sir.
Are you withdrawing the second of the first motion, which will allow you to make a second motion?
Sure.
All right, now,
Make a motion to approve with a gun range and then 1,200 people.
all right, somebody else is going to make the next motion since you made the first. That will be John.
I make whatever motion he just made.
All right, we have a motion to accept
Second.
staff recommendation with no changes to the conditions. We have a second to that motion. Any further discussion? We have a roll call vote, please.
Daryl Flimsy,
Yo ho Buffalo.
Priscilla Goodhart. No. Chester Manley,
Heck yes.
Kate Evergreen,
Of course not.
Chairman Stokowski.
Of course not. That motion failed on a 2-3 vote. Do we have another motion to make for our recommendation?
Make a motion to approve with the conditions.
Well, that motion just failed, so do we have a different?
I make a motion to recommend denial.
Second.
Motion to recommend denial. With the second, do we have any just further discussion on that motion?
Discussion. You people should be ashamed of yourself. You're going to deny this economic development opportunity and the use of this land. They have the right to use their land as they want. Think about that the next time you want to go to the beer garden and pluck some chickens. And wash coconuts.
Know how to begin, but finish you can.
All right, will the clerk call the roll on the motion to deny?
Daryl Flimsy,
Nope.
Priscilla Goodhart,
Yes.
Chester Manley,
Like, is yes or no?
The motion is a recommendation to deny
What, okay, the whole thing?
the whole thing.
No.
Kate Evergreen,
Aye.
Chairman Stokowski.
Aye. The motion carries 3-2. Our recommendation to the city council is to deny this modification of the PUD. Any further business before the board? We're adjourned.
All right. Let's hear now from the whistle crew. Ann.
I think that the planning board acted like most planning boards I've ever seen. A little bit.
It's funny because it's true.
And Mr. Stokowski is an expert on Robert's Rules of Order. Congratulations.
Really? Peter.
I was very impressed, thank you, and it's a real true nerve of what we do for a living. But one thing, and I tried to make this point clear when I was speaking earlier, whenever you go from 1,200 to 800, I always like it to be some justification as opposed to just splitting the baby. And that would have been a good case for a study or something, if you did tie it back to police and fire. But this was outstanding. This was worth the drive over to see this.
Well, thank you, and thank everybody for coming today. This has been terrific. Wayne?
Mr. Chairman, we all know an appeal's coming from this. All of which are members of the august, as aforesaid, Buffaloes. But I would say this all felt kind of scripted, as if it was worked out in advance. And that'll be the basis of the appeal. Thank you.
Deep state conspiracy confirmed.
And I want to thank the cast and everybody else who volunteered on this. This was a great effort, and I'm hoping that we can do something like this sometime in the next year or so in South Lee County and Collier County, because we haven't really covered those areas. But thank you, everybody. It was great.